What's up, world? It's your boy Terrell Miller, your astrology teacher, and today I'm going to give y'all my video on how to find marriage in your chart from your planetary alignments. How to see if you're going to get married this lifetime. Feel me? It's a couple techniques you got to do. So try to keep up with me if you're new to astrology, you don't know too much about your planetary alignments and things of that nature. Make sure you follow my page. I will be constantly dropping these type of videos to kind of help you, Or you can follow me on Facebook at Terrell Jupiter Miller. So I do a lot of, explaining things on my Facebook channel. If you want to know your planetary alignment, go to Google, type in birth natal chart calculation, put your birthday, your time in. It's going to give you an astrological chart of your life. Feel me? So before I make this video, I'm not making this video to discourage no one. Everyone has a soulmate. My job is to show you how to locate that person, what you need to be doing to attract that person. Now, if you have good karma, then you're naturally going to have certain planetary alignments that I'm saying. That means from previous lifetimes, you already paid good karma. So the universe is here to bless you with a prosperous spouse. Feel me? So the first thing you want to look at when you're looking at marriage in somebody's chart, you want to look at Venus, you want to look at Jupiter. You also want to look at Mars, but I'm going to speak on Mars later. First, we're going to talk about Venus and Jupiter. For women, Venus represents you, all the women that you attract in your life, and Jupiter represents your husband. For men, Jupiter represents you, your teachers, your gurus, and Venus represents your wife. So to find your wife, you must track down your Venus. For women, to find your Jupiter or your husband, you must track Venus and Jupiter together. Feel me? Because Venus rules love and Jupiter rules your husband. Naturally, if you have these conjunction in your chart, which is Venus and Jupiter conjuncted, you ain't even got to watch this whole video. You gonna get married. Feel me? Or you have that aspect where Jupiter is looking at Venus. But this video is mainly about the house placement, it's about the location, and it's about the characteristics of your spouse. Feel me? So the first thing you need to know, if a woman, not just a woman, if a woman or a man has Jupiter or Venus in their first house, that can kind of guarantee marriage, because the first house rules you, it rules your outer appearance, it rules your body. So if a woman has Jupiter in that first house, that shows me that Jupiter, which is her husband, is coming to her. And these people have natural intelligence to know how to keep the relationship together. Some people get married, but they don't have the intelligence to get along with their spouse or make things work out. So Venus and Jupiter in the first house kind of guarantees marriage. Venus in the second house guarantees marriage. Why? Because the second house rules wealth. That means there's going to be enough money between you two that y'all can sustain a happy marriage. You feel me? And certain relationships, this is how certain relationships, people get into relationships and get married, but they end up getting a divorce, not because they couldn't get along, it's because the finances went down. Bills started to come up short. Motherfuckers feel like I've been doing worse since I got with you. That is why I'm making this video, to show y'all what's going to happen after you get married. So with somebody who got Venus in the second house, that guarantees marriage because the financial stability is going to be there. The second house rules your immediate family members. So early in life, because the first house rules your ascendant, the second house rules your first initiation to the world. So they first initiation to the world, they found their spouse. So the spouse could have been cool with one of their siblings. The spouse could have stayed up the street from them. The spouse could know one of their family members. That is why Venus in the second house guarantees marriage. And also, if you got Venus in the second house, after marriage, you will see your income rise. After marriage, you could buy property or real estate, or you could move into a bigger house. Venus or Jupiter in the fifth house also kind of guarantees marriage because the fifth house represents the romance in a relationship. You know, old couples who 60, 90 years old, but they still slow dance late at night with their spouse. The man can still charm his old lady and make her laugh because the romance is still there. You feel me? So naturally, Venus in the fifth house guarantees marriage because the fifth house also represents our good deeds that we paid in previous lifetimes. So if a man or a woman has Venus or Jupiter there, it shows me they already kind of paid good deeds dealing with their spouse or dealing with their husband. Feel me? So that kind of guarantees marriage. After marriage, you will see that you will start gaining through speculation, like gambling, hitting the lottery, getting some type of inheritance. If you into business for yourself, you're going to see an increase in your business. These planets also brings children after marriage, or it could bring before marriage. If it brings before marriage, you might end up marrying the person that you have children with. It can also bring you light fame or light popularity because Venus in the fifth house gives you an artistic spouse, somebody who's creative, somebody who's probably in the music industry, somebody who's in the fashion industry. You feel me? So they're going to have a little creative spark to them. And also Venus in the fifth house, they're going to be good with children. You know what I'm saying? So that's a very good placement to have. Venus or Jupiter in the fifth house. Venus or Jupiter in the seventh house guaranteed marriage because the seventh house is the house of marriage. It's naturally the house of partnership. So if you got Venus and Jupiter there, then guaranteed you're going to be married because the universe is going to align you with your spouse. Drika Gates, she got Jupiter in the seventh house in Pisces. She's a Virgo ascendant. She's a Virgo. Naturally, she met Kevin Gates. The seventh house gives you a well-balanced spouse. So they have both sides to them because they trying to balance it out. So you get a spouse who could be a pretty boy, but he know how to fight. He could be a gangster, but he's very intelligent. And as you can see, Kevin Gates, he's all that. He's gangster, but he's very intelligent. He's very philosophical, but he's still kind of wild in a way, you know. But he's a very well-balanced partner. And Jupiter represents wealth. You want to know what you're going to find wealth from? Look at Venus and Jupiter. Feel me? So naturally, her spouse brought wealth into her life. So if you got Jupiter in the seventh house, your spouse is going to bring a lot of wealth to you. But that kind of guarantees marriage. Jupiter and Venus in the 11th house guarantees marriage because the 11th house rules your hopes, dreams, and wishes. That means if Jupiter is in there, then your hopes, dreams, and wishes was to get married and be with your husband. If Venus is there, your hopes, dreams, and wishes was to get married and have a lot of beautiful women attend your ceremony. And the reason why it guarantees marriage because it represents your social circle. These are the people who have big weddings. Why? Because they have a big social circle. They have a lot of invitations to send out. Feel me? So that kind of guarantees marriage. And if you got this conjunction, then that definitely guarantees marriage. So Venus in the second house guarantees marriage. Venus in the fifth house guarantees marriage. Venus in the seventh house and in the 11th house guarantees marriage. Jupiter in the first house guarantees marriage. Jupiter in the second house, I won't say the second house. The second house could guarantee marriage too. Feel me? But you have to look at its aspect. So Jupiter in the first house, second house, fifth house, seventh house, and 11th house, all guaranteed marriage. So if you got these planetary alignments, you definitely got to meet your soulmate. To find out the timing of when you're going to meet that person is going to come through the Venus and Jupiter transit. Jupiter, anytime, let's say if you're like Cardi B, her Venus is in Scorpio. 2 years ago, Jupiter was transiting Scorpio. So she met the rapper Offset. So anytime Jupiter transits your Venus, like right now, Jupiter is in Capricorn. If you got Venus in Capricorn or Venus in Aquarius, chances are you're going to meet your soulmate this year. So anytime you're going along that transit, that is what activates your soulmate or your Mahadasha. Your Mahadasha is the planet that rules your life for a certain amount of time. So if you're going through your Venus Mahadasha, that rules your life for a 20-year span. So within those 20 years, you're going to be dealing with women. You could meet your spouse. You could be in a relationship. So the 11th house, 7th house, 5th house, 2nd house, 1st house guarantees marriage. Okay, now you want to find the location of your spouse. Where do I go? Do I have to travel to find my spouse? Would I find my spouse in my own local neighborhood? Do I have to go to school and get my education? Will my spouse be on my job? You feel me? That also goes with the placement of Venus and Jupiter. But Venus get exalted in the sign Pisces. So wherever Pisces is at in your chart, that is where your spouse is going to come out at. So let's say, for instance, somebody who's a Cancer rising or a Cancer ascendant. And Pisces rules their ninth house of foreign traveling. So it don't matter wherever Venus is at in their chart, that person is going to come out of the ninth house. That means her spouse could be very spiritual, very religion. Her spouse could be a guru, a teacher. Her spouse could come from foreign places, or she would have to travel to foreign places. So if you got Venus in your ninth house, naturally in your birth natal chart, you would have to go to foreign places to meet your spouse. You can get in relationships in your local community, but they just not going to work out because your spouse is in foreign places. So wherever Pisces at in your chart, that is where Venus is going to get exalted at. So for people who are Taurus is ascended, Pisces rules your 11th house of social network, friends, and social media. Then you can meet your spouse on social media. Chances are your best compatible mate is somebody who's already your friend. Feel me? Or your spouse could be hanging with one of your siblings. Your elder sibling could know your spouse or introduce you to your spouse. So wherever house Venus is at, that shows the location of your spouse. Feel me? So if Venus is in your 3rd house dealing with your local community, you're going to find your spouse in your local community, up the street, probably at the corner store. They're going to have a nice car. They're going to be fly with communication. After marriage, y'all going to get a lot of traveling. You feel me? Also, with Jupiter and Venus in the 11th house, after marriage, you're going to gain a lot. Because the 11th house rules gains. You feel me? Let me see what else. Wherever Venus at, pinpoints the location. Wherever Pisces at in your chart shows me where the person is going to come out at. So for somebody who's a Gemini rising or a Gemini ascendant, they have Pisces in their 10th house. The 10th house represents your career, your reputation out there in the world. So if Pisces rule your 10th house, it shows me that you're going to get a very career-driven spouse. And you might not meet your spouse until you start asserting yourself to your career. Your spouse is going to already kind of be popular. Your spouse is going to already be in the spotlight. Feel me? So the more you go to work, the more you assert yourself to your career, that's how a person is going to find a spouse. Okay, another thing you want to look at is the aspects between Mars and Venus. Feel me? Because Mars rules male figures, Venus rules the wife. Mars rules the dick, Venus rules the pussy. So if you have a conjunction of Mars and Venus together, that guarantees marriage. If you have an aspect of Mars and Venus where they're looking at each other from the sky, opposite to each other, Mars have 4 aspects. That means it looks 4th from itself, it looks 7th from itself, or it looks 8th from itself. So if you have Mars in your 1st house, for example, and you have Venus in your 4th house, you're going to find your spouse or get married. You have Venus in the 7th house, you're going to find your spouse or get married. Or you have Venus in the 8th house, you're going to find your spouse and get married. Feel me? So looking at the aspects of Venus and Mars guarantees marriage. Another thing you want to look at is your Darakakarma and your Navamsha chart. Your Navamsha chart is your D9 chart. Your D9 chart is a chart that only talks about specifically marriage. That is one zodiac chart that only talks about marriage, you and your wife. Is y'all going to have kids? Is y'all going to accumulate debt after marriage? Y'all going to get a divorce? Is going to be a happy marriage? That is the D9 chart. We'll get into that later. That's a whole nother video. But your Darakakarma is the planet with the lowest degree. So whatever planet has the lowest degree in your chart, that is how you're going to find your spouse. They're going to be ruled by their energy. So if Mars have the lowest degree, let's say if your Mars is at 3 degrees and it's the lowest degree in your birth natal chart, then chances are your spouse is going to be Martian. That means they could be an Aries or a Scorpio because these 2 signs are ruled by Mars. They could have their Lugna Lord or their rising lord in these two signs, because it ruled by that Mars energy. You feel me? Or they could have their Venus or their Jupiter in that sign. So things you want to look at to determine if you're going to get married this lifetime. This is not if you're going to find your soulmate. Because I can show you, I can pinpoint you what direction to go to find your soulmate. Or the characteristics that they're going to have. But if you want to look at a basic analysis in your chart, look and see if you have Venus and Jupiter in the first, second house, fifth house, seventh house, or 11th house. Find out where Pisces is at in your chart. Is this in your 7th house, 8th house, 3rd house, 4th house, 11th house? That shows you the location where you're going to find Venus at. Then you see the aspects between Mars and Venus. Is Mars and Venus looking at each other? Is they conjuncted? Is they touching? Wherever house they're touching at, if Mars and Venus are conjuncted in your 6th house. 6th house represents your job, your daily routine, your work, you servicing other people. So chances are this person going to bump into their spouse at work.